Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Education Exchange. My name is Anthony Sanchez, and we're back at the district office to talk to a legendary figure of the Tolleson Union High School, Coach Richardson. Let's introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Scott Richardson, the head baseball coach at Tolleson High School, entering my 26th season here at Tolleson.
Hi, I'm Dana Richardson, and Scott Richardson is my husband.
So, Coach, how long have you been at Tolleson? How many years exactly?
This is my 26th season.
26th season
Yeah.
at Tolleson. And how many years in total have you been teaching?
Teaching, my first contract was 93, so whatever that is, and then I spent 3 or 4 years after I got done playing coaching at the college level. So I think teaching for 33 years.
So you've coached at college level. Did you play growing
I
up?
did. I did. After graduating from Buckeye High School, me and one of my best friends, we went to Palm Springs, California, on a football and baseball scholarship. But when I saw some of the athletes there, I thought, okay, baseball might be a better route for me. So I played there for a year. I came back and finished at Phoenix College. Once I figured out I wasn't quite mature enough to be out on my own, came back to Phoenix College, I finished, got my AA, and then went to a 4-year school in New Mexico and finished out my playing experience at University of the Southwest in Hobbs, New Mexico.
So in all that, when did you meet your wife?
Well, I had finished playing, and I was actually the coach that recruited me opened up a brand new program literally across the street in New Mexico Junior College, and I was the assistant coach there. Now, granted, I was only maybe 22, and I met Dana in a class that I was taking there.
Oh, classmate.
Yeah, and
Nice.
I gave her the old, "Hey, do you want to study?"
Ah.
She says, "You don't look like the studying type." So, no, we hit it off, and it's been, nothing but roses since then.
What was your first impression of Coach Richardson?
So I can remember him. I can't remember if he was with a coach or not, but they were in the back of the class. I had him with in history class and then an adolescent psychology class. And I just noticed him, but didn't know who he was. And so my PE teacher was Coach Birmingham,
Mhm.
who later went to UNM, was the baseball coach there. And so he told me one day that one of his coaches liked me and he looked like Yogi Berra. I knew exactly who he was talking about.
That's funny. Okay.
And so then I kind of paid attention, but I hung out with a couple of the baseball players, not many. And so when he came and asked me out, and I said yes, but I thought, I'm really messing up with the baseball players. And so they came to me right away and they said, "We hear you're going out with our coach. Is that true?" So, and that was it.
So has baseball been a part of your life as like your part of your life, like your whole life, or has
Well,
it been like
my dad
recently?
is always like sports growing up, but my brother didn't play. So it wasn't really until I married Scott that, well, since then, baseball, of course, has been a part of our life from, you know, the time I married him, really, because he was
Mhm.
coaching then until now.
And so you guys met in New Mexico. How did you guys make your way over to Arizona?
So our kids at the time were about 3 and 7, and he'd been wanting to come over. And he heard about the Tolleson job.
Mm.
And yet they filled it, but they said, if you want it, it's yours. You can come back. So we had basically a year to think about it and decide. And I told them we need to move before our kids get too old. I
Mm.
said, moving when you're in the upper grades is really kind of traumatic. So we moved over here when they were still young. His parents, his family are here, so we have a good support system.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. So this past December, it was announced that you, Coach Richardson, were nominated for the National High School Baseball Coaches Hall of Fame. What was that reaction like for you? What was that like reaction for your family?
Um, I was, to be honest, I was probably happier for my family than myself because I know how much, even though that they say it's not a sacrifice, I don't think they know what our life might have been if we weren't at the baseball field, so often. The good part about that is our all of our vacations revolved around baseball, whether it was going to watch Brock, and those are some of our best times. I mean, as a family, going to San Diego to a baseball tournament or Irvine or wherever, getting to play at Dodger Stadium, doing all of those things. that we got to do as a family, I kind of felt that the reward or the award um, is deserving. Our entire family. I mean, they deserve that for all the stuff that they've allowed me to do. You know, all those long hours and calling Dana, even though we live 3 miles away, I'll be home in 15 minutes, and she knows that that could be an hour. Because well, the sprinkler, I had to water or whatever, and um, just all of those things. I mean, but so I was more embarrassed because you look at the people that are inducted into the Hall of Fame, and we went last year because a good friend of mine, was inducted. Um, and one guy had been coaching for 63 years. We're sitting at a table with a guy that was coaching for 63 years, another guy that had 19 state championships. And I just felt personally that I don't really belong with these guys. I mean, those guys are true Hall of Famers. The Hall of Famers that I know from here, Eric Kibler and Jerry Dawson, Gary Lefevre, Tom Suko, guys like Matt Denny, those guys in my mind are Hall of Famers. Their record speaks for itself. And so I don't know. Sometimes I question of whether I belong in there, like record wise. I mean, a longevity award. I mean, I appreciate it, and I mean, I think I work hard and everything. But I'm just happy for the family for my family that they get to experience some of this. I think the award is for them more than me.
What was your reaction like for you and your family? Yeah.
Well, when they first told us, it was kind of, keep this quiet. And at first, I thought it was something different. And I didn't actually, I don't think I told you this, but I didn't actually realize it was a national. And later, I came to realize it. But by that time, Scott had already said, I don't think I'm deserving of this. It kind of embarrasses me. I'm not in the same, league as these others. And of course, I think that's ridiculous. I have said for years that he deserves it
Mhm.
because nobody gets their players to improve more than he does, in my opinion.
Mhm.
But,
Reason number three that I know I picked the right one.
you could, there are coaches that change teams to make it where it is more likely to win a state championship. And Scott's had opportunities. And we always, he's made the pro list and the con list, and he's stayed loyal to Tolleson because he loves those kids and loves the community. He didn't have to stay. And we're still hoping one day we're going to have a state, championship here at Tolleson. That would be phenomenal. Nothing would make us happier. And so it means more to win here than to go somewhere else that has a good team and good players and win. That doesn't matter to us. And so to me, I'm like, look at the work that you've done. People that know coaching and know him know how much he's done. They know how good he is. And so I just wish he would remember that. But, when he goes and gives his speech, there's going to be a lot of his supporters in there. Lots of fellow coaches are going to go. And I just want him to remember what they have told him and how amazing they think he is.
Awesome. And has the nomination changed the way like you think about your legacy and what you're gonna do in the future as a baseball coach?
No, I don't think so. I don't. Um, I mean, to be honest, I wish it didn't happen because I don't want to change the way I do things or how I
Mhm.
go about my business, and I don't want people to ever say, well, I always big time now or whatever.
Mhm.
I mean, I remember when I first started, they're like, "Oh, you're one of the good young coaches," and that to me was a better compliment than, "Hey, congratulations, you're in the Hall of Fame." I mean, yeah, you've done it for 26 years, but again, I feel like that has something to do with longevity. But I mean, to answer your question, I don't think so. I don't. I try not to think about it. I spent more time thinking about, yeah, what am I going to say? When I'm standing up there, because I've been to several of these, and it's very, very moving. Some of the stories that people are telling, and I'm like, I don't know if I have anything that moving other than just to pay tribute to the people that have supported me
Yes, you
and
do.
make some good jokes. I've been coming up with some really good jokes for my induction speech. So,
Well, if it's anything close to what you've been telling us in this episode, I feel like
good.
you're gonna
All
do
right.
completely fine. You're gonna do completely fine. What do you feel like it's done for his legacy as a coach?
I feel like everyone that he knows, all the coaches he's worked with. I don't think it really changes anything, that the baseball community knows him and they know all the work that he's done, not just for Tolleson, but, for the AZBCA. Did I say that correct?
Mhm.
And, the teams that they take back for those tournaments where they represent Team Arizona.
Mhm.
And you've won a couple of those. So there you are.
There I
But
am.
so I think the baseball community already recognizes him. I think a lot of them, including some of his closest coaching friends, have already said it's about time.
Wow. And then I wanted to ask you, what does it mean to coach for Tolleson for so long and with so many families trusting you with their kids year after year? What does it mean? What does it mean to you?
When I first came over and I decided I was going to take the job, like, okay, well, you need to go and work out the details with the superintendent, Dr. Flores. And it was at the old district office where the Lighthouse
Mhm.
Academy is. And Dana's with me, and she goes, "I'm just going to stay out here." And so I go in, and I meet with Dr. Flores, and "Yeah, I'm your guy. I want to come here. I want to build something, special, and I want to do summer ball. I want to have a booster club. I want to do year-round baseball. We're going to get them in the weight room. We're going to get kids to college." And he's like, "We're all in." And I was like, "Financially, this is what I need to come here. And I know I'm not a high-powered football coach that demands this money, but for me, just financially to be able to bring my family, this is where I have to be." And I mean, I see what my base contract's going to be, and we're not quite there. I mean, what can we do? And he goes, "Where do you need to be?" And I said, "Right here." And he goes, "All right, it's done. We're gonna make that happen." And I said, "Oh, okay. Are we gonna are we gonna like write anything down?" And he stuck his hand out and he goes, "No, we're gonna shake hands and we're gonna make it happen." I said, "Okay." And I went out and told Dana. I said, "Well, I took the job. Were they able to get us where?" I said, "Yep, we shook on it." And she goes, "You what?" I said, "We shook on it."
I don't
and
remember that day.
and so and sure enough, he was able to finagle some things. I worked with the little league and I took care of the complex or whatever. But having people entrust you with their kids, and seeing just kids being grateful, families being grateful, just the fact of somebody saying thank you, not how come Johnny's not hitting in the three hole? He should be playing shortstop. I mean, I tell people all the time that all the bad things about high school athletics, I don't deal with many of those here at Tolleson High School. I mean, our administration has been supportive. The teachers, the community, they pretty much let me do what we need to do. And some of those things that we do are kind of outdated. And I realize that,
Mm.
but they've been good to me. I mean, obviously my family, we're all here. And so, I mean, I'm indebted to the Tolleson community, and just being able to see kids that show up the first day of practice that might not have a glove. And after 4 years, they're able to play high caliber varsity baseball. Like Dana said, yeah, there's other places where kids come in and they're more of a polished product. Um, but seeing that development after 4 years, you're just like, wow, it's special, and it will always
Awesome.
be special. Every place and every school has warts. It just depends on what kind of warts and where they're at, and is it worth going somewhere else? And these never have been. I mean, I've always wanted to stay here, and so that's where it's at.
That's awesome. Dana, what about for you? What is it like to see what his legacy has become at Tolleson?
Well, Tolleson, like you said, is just a special community, and we can't see ourselves anywhere else. But when it comes down to is, people aren't going to remember who won which award. They're going to remember who was there for them when they needed them, who was a support for them. And so when you see the alumni game, that's pretty amazing. When you see all the, some years you have more than others, but we've had a couple years where we had a ton of them, and they brought their whole families, and they're asking about other players and other coaches that aren't there, and that's when you realize what it's really all about.
That's awesome. And before we can go on to the next segment, we see you with the Tolleson gear, but I've heard that you have Tolleson on your body. Is that
I,
true?
it is true.
Or
It is true.
you have it? So what made you want to get a Tolleson tattoo?
Oh, I've always I told her, "I think I'm gonna get a tattoo. I think I'm gonna get a tattoo." And so when my brother passed away, I got, like a little memorial tattoo. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. And so I saw a design that I liked, and I went down here in Tolleson and said, "This is what I want." And she goes, "Oh, I can make that really, really cool." And I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna trust you." And then she did it, and I was like, "Whoa, that's a lot bigger than I thought it was gonna be." But it was really cool. So now I'm kind of the only places other than Tolleson that I can coach would be Tempe High School, Tonopah, Tucson High. It's got to be somewhere with a T because there's a big
Yeah,
T on my
Texas.
arm inside
Yeah.
of
Texas.
inside of baseball. So no, I'm pretty proud of it. And the kids, when we start talking about, are you in it for the long haul? And I show them that, and they're like, yeah. And it's not supposed to be like a motivational thing, but I'm like, I'm here, and I'm gonna outwork you. I mean, it's not gonna be one of those where we take days off and it's 115. We're not going to do summer ball. This is what we do here, and so that's where we're at.
That's awesome. That's a cool story to hear. So now we're going to move on over to Coach Richardson's children and get their take on Coach Richardson's legacy at Tolleson. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We're back with Coach Richardson's children. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Brock Richardson. I coach baseball here at TUHS. I also teach special ed here, and I graduated from here in 2015.
I'm Rayanne Southern, formerly Richardson. I also teach special ed at Tolleson, and I'm our head spirit line coach.
Wow. So both of you guys work at Tolleson. How long have you guys been working at Tolleson?
She was first. What year did you get here?
I started in 2019, so we're coming up on 7 years at Tolleson.
2019, 7 years ago.
And I started in the spring of 2021. That was the one quarter we came back right after COVID. So been here since then.
Nice, nice. So you guys are Coach Richardson's children. So how Tolleson has always been ingrained in your guys' DNA, probably. So what was it like to be a part of Tolleson and be working with your dad?
Well, I always tell people it really feels like mathematical. I feel like I spent 50% of my time at our house and the other 50% was legitimately at the field with my dad. For her, it might have been a little different because I would usually get dropped off after school with dad and I was just with him. But regardless, yeah, we spent plenty of weekends, plenty of hours just over and over at the field. And it never felt like, oh, we're stuck at work with dad. It was like, this is where we wanted to be. It was our comfort zone for me, for sure. You want to add?
Yeah, really same. So many of our childhood memories, I feel like, came from the complex at Tolleson Union High School. We learned how to ride our bikes there. We did driving practice in that parking lot. We've seen all the renovations and every season, countless seasons of games. So it's definitely a huge part of our life and our childhoods.
Nice. And then how has seeing him from before you guys even started working at Tolleson, from him just coaching at Tolleson, being a teacher at Tolleson, how has that shaped your guys' approach on how you guys work with your students, not just in the classroom, but since you guys are both coaches on the field as well?
Really so much that I do as the head coach of our program, I base off of what he's done with his program. I often ask myself, okay, what would dad do in this scenario? Or I will call him all the time, hey, what would you do? And even though some might think that cheer and baseball are a lot different, when it comes down to coaching and working with kids, it really always is the same. So there's a lot of similarities within our programs and within how we coach. And that's not really a coincidence. It's just kind of, what we know.
For sure. And for me too, there's different layers to that. There's the baseball side of it where if I have a question or I'm curious about something, he's there. But yeah, like she said, it's like, we work with him and we also work at the same facilities as him. And so just over the years, it's really any question like, hey, how does this work? Or from a logistical perspective, like, how does this go down? And he's just got all the answers. And he's kind of our personal chat GPT where it's just, if I need to know something, how school logistics work or team wise or whatever, bus transportation, I got a trip overnight. How does that look? So yeah, he's just a good ear for us for sure.
He's always the go-to guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome to have. And so what was your guys' reactions when you guys found out that he was a nominee for the National High School Baseball Coaches Hall of Fame? What was that reaction like for you guys, your family? How was that like?
Well, he told us when we were in the middle of Christmas photos,
Oh,
and so we're
wow.
all. I already hate photos. My wife is always "Hey, put a smile on, and so we got all the different hats or whatever. And he's like, "Oh, by the way, I've been put into the whatever Hall of Fame," and we all had a huge reaction. It was pretty
It
cool.
was a good photo moment,
For
right?
for
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
it was kind of like I'm kind of surprised it hasn't happened by then. It wasn't really surprised to me just because of what he's done. It was just like,
Hmm.
yeah, that tracks. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was really cool because one of his close coaching friends, who we also know very well, just got inducted right before, and him and my mom went to the ceremony and everything to support him. So it was kind of fresh on our brains, and it was a cool moment, and it's a really cute photo too.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, what do you guys think his players would say is his biggest impact on their lives?
I would
Oof.
say, for Tolleson in particular, there's a lot of kids that might come through and maybe they didn't have both parents in the household, or maybe they had different things going on in their lives. We just had an alumni game a couple weeks ago, and I remember seeing like a couple faces that I remember, and then I would ask him like, "Hey, was that guy good? Like, how good is he?" And he would say, "Oh, he was really good, but had some things going on at home. He had a good chance though." And there's a lot of that at Tolleson. And now we're at the point where either guys are coming back to the field or he'll get those phone calls randomly on a Saturday afternoon of just guys that want to talk to coach and how everything's going. And now he's at the phase where he's starting to get those, coach, you just meant so much to me and you showed me this and you showed me that. Again, it doesn't surprise us because we knew that all along, but yeah, I see a lot of that from former players that come through, and not just guys that were good and played for him.
Mm.
A lot of guys that didn't make it. Maybe they got cut, and maybe in the moment they didn't understand or something, and they come back years later and they say, "I understand," or I can see where you were coming from. It taught me a lot. You were right. So I see a lot of that at the field.
Yeah, no, same. I think that they, you know, all have something similar to think about that, whether it was just, like you said, the tough moments or the good moments or all of it together. Um, I think all of us probably feel that way about our high school coach if we had a good one. I know I certainly do. So, um, I imagine it's only good things out there that they're thinking.
Awesome. Yeah. And then as a family, what makes you guys like most proud of him? Not just as a coach, not just as a person, but like as a father as well.
Um, I think all of it. I think just like I said when I got married, just the relationships that we still have with those people. And we could sit here and just tell stories upon stories about different people, different players, different families that we, were privileged to get to know through Tolleson baseball. It's just that has stuck with me forever. I think just the different people and all the different, relationships that we've been able to build. I think what makes me the most proud though is that at someday there, whether it's soon or far from here, he won't be there, and I think that there is a legacy there that will be very, very hard to erase. And I'm doing my best to instill it within my own program, and I know many other coaches on our campus really look up to him. And I think that makes me proud. It makes me proud when he's the life of the party. He's got the jokes. It's really hard to find someone who doesn't like Coach Richardson, and that makes me super proud.
I would say for me, the biggest thing that sticks out is not only his commitment, but his consistency of what his schedule is. I think we're in a time period where I'm going to talk more so from the high school athletic side. There's just a lot of programs out there where I feel like they either are getting lazy or it's really easy for coaches and programs to go, you know what, we won't do an off season thing. We won't fundraise or we won't, help out in the community or whatever. And sometimes it's for good reasons, but sometimes it's just like we don't feel like doing it. And in his 20, 25 years doing it, there's never been a summer where we randomly just we didn't want to play this year. We got caught up in some things or we're going to cancel. Like it's just always like clockwork. This is how we're going to do things, whether it's going well or whether it's not going well. And that helps me a lot as an adult. Like I would, I left for college and obviously I had a lot of fun at college. I did the typical like, oh, I'm away from home. I can just, be lazy today or get away with it or whatever. What he's shown me is, whether things are going good or bad, once you take that one day off, you're going to want to take another one off. You're going to want to do it a third time. And I don't want to use the whole cliche of no days off, but I just feel like whether things were going good or bad, he had the same routine to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And then when you guys reflect on like the last 20 or 30 years of him like coaching and teaching, what do you guys think has been like the heart of this journey for him and for your guys' family?
I don't know. Probably all of it.
I think the fact that family's been a part of it.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of coaches, and I hear this a lot from him, where I might ask him like, "Hey, how's Coach so and so's son?" And he's like, "Oh, well, his son doesn't play baseball, or he doesn't have that connection with him, or whatever." And I think we're very grateful that for a lot of people, they probably view us as like, I don't know if I would want to work with my whole family. I don't know if that would be a good thing.
Right.
For us, it's more of the opposite. We can see where people are coming from if they say that, but that's really all we've known. Like
Right.
since the time we've been little kids, we've been a part of this culture and this community. And it was almost just easier when her husband could get a job, like, hey, come work with me. That'll be awesome. And then
Yeah.
I got here, I met my wife, and then it's like, yeah, everyone other than my mom. And we've tried to recruit her many times. But I think the fact that he's been able to do a lot of this with his family, I would be willing to bet that if I didn't play for him, or if she didn't have an interest in the program, or if his wife wasn't the coach's wife that she is, there, just like a lot of coaches have to do, that he might have pulled the plug early and gone, you know what,
Yeah.
this isn't working out. So I think that's what the core probably is.
I think too, he does a really good job of building a staff of people that he trusts and people that he
Mhm.
loves and people that make it fun for him. They say the best job you can have is one that doesn't feel like work.
Mhm.
And I think that's what he's done with baseball, particularly having our family close by and the coaches that he has on his staff. They've always been like an extension of our family too.
And how's it been like just always like working around your family, always having your family there? Like if you were to ever have you guys both work in special education, so you can always just go like to your sister and be like, hey, like
Yeah.
have like this, like I have a question about this, or like you can go to your brother and be like, I have a question about this, or you can go to your dad, have a question about that. You can go to your wife or husband.
Right.
Yeah.
How is that for you guys?
It's awesome. Like he said,
Yeah.
we never thought twice. We get that response a lot. I would not want to work with my wife, or
Mhm.
that would be really weird. We never feel that way. It's just fun. And we really don't see each other that much at work besides us being in the same department, but we really don't see each other that much. So it's just fun, and it's a good way to connect us all. And it's just really cool.
Yeah, I would agree with every word of that. Enough said.
Awesome. And then if you guys could describe Coach Richardson in one word as a coach, what would that word be?
You go. I need to think for 5 seconds.
Legendary.
Respected.
Awesome. Thank you guys for joining us on this episode about Coach Richardson and his legendary status at Tolleson. Thank you guys for watching this episode, and have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of the Education Exchange. Have a question or want to be a guest on our podcast? Email podcast@tuhsd.org for more information. Missed an episode? Catch all seasons of the Education Exchange on your favorite streaming platforms or at www.tuhsd.org/podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next week for another episode of the Education Exchange.